Callie, remember when I came to you and said, hey, let's start a podcast 2 years ago?
Oh, yeah. And you mean when we pulled two random chairs together against a blank wall in your office at the time, and we were like, this looks great.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we knew the first guest that we wanted to have on, and she was perfect.
Yep. And we're so excited to welcome her back today. Season 3 of Smith Lane, baby. Whoop, whoop. Lesley Deutch joins us again.
I am honored to be back here, and I couldn't believe I was your first guest, so honored as well.
It is so crazy you were our first guest, Lesley. It was 2 years ago, and I went back and listened to our first episode with you, and I was terrified to listen. I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be so bad. The sound is going to be horrible. Monica and I clearly had no idea what we were doing. We don't know what we're doing now. We didn't know what we were doing then.
Really didn't know what we were doing then.
But I listened to it, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. There's really good stuff in there.
I just remember how, scared almost we were. Here's a question. Lesley, can you please answer this question?
Yeah, yeah, but it was good. But all that to say, welcome back, Lesley.
Yes, welcome back.
And it's nice to be watching all the success that you've had with the podcast. It's great with the podcast and the company and everything that you're doing. So I feel proud for both of you. It's very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and a lot of that success is owed to you. You've been so helpful over the last several years for us, and you know how much I appreciate that.
Yeah, we go deep into our relationship with Lesley on the first episode.
What you're doing and what your ideas are so unique to our industry and the way that you look at things. And that makes me feel good. Like I can see a business before it starts, because I knew there was nothing like what you were doing, and that's been clearly played out with all your success. So congratulations.
Well, I encourage everybody to go listen to our first episode with Lesley. We go deep into her background and what John Burns does. But just to bring anybody else up to speed quickly, Lesley, and fill in any blanks you want, but your background, you started on Wall Street. You met John Burns randomly through some sort of work event,
yes. Right?
Didn't know anything about the real estate industry. And that was 16 years ago. And you've been at John Burns ever since. And I remember you stating that you didn't know a single builder when starting with him. And I relate to that so deeply from when starting with Monaca, but it's crazy to see what you've grown in the industry and your reputation since then too.
No, it's been great. 19 years, Callie. Can you believe it? It's 19 years I've been
19 years.
Yes, it'll be 19 in September. So I was hired when Lehman Brothers collapsed. The day it collapsed, that was my first job too. So it was a full circle moment for me. Yeah, I've enjoyed every minute of it. I knew commercial real estate. I didn't know residential. So I had a long runway of trying to figure out what residential real estate was. I've always been good at markets and locations and where we're going, but the residential of how people live and why they live where they do was my learning curve. So yes, spent a lot of time doing it, a lot of time in the car, looking at projects, talking to people, come to a very good place here.
Yeah. And that's just quickly, that's really what John Burns Research and Consulting focuses on. It's everything housing.
Yes. So 2 parts to the business, research and consulting. The research kind of tracks what's happening monthly, weekly, every day, every minute with numbers and data and models. And then the consulting side, about 50 of us now all over the country are going in and out of markets, helping builders and developers and landowners, banks, you name it, helping them make good investment decisions. So it's a nice combination of the two. So I've been here so long. I have nice forecasting models and data, and I can apply that data to what I do on the ground in these specific markets.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
And that was our crash course on Lesley and John Burns Research and Consulting.
Hey, Lesley, we want to get into what you're thinking about these days. I think that there's affordability. We want to talk about that. Thinking about the migration. We had talked a little bit about that in our last podcast. Can you expand on some of that?
Sure. My 2 favorite topics, because they're interrelated, right? Migration is happening because people are looking for affordability. So it's been a wild ride. Now I'm old enough to say I've been through a few cycles. Home prices went up across the country, 20% plus everywhere after COVID. And that was great for people that were living in homes, not so great for people that now want to buy homes. So we're at the point in the market where, and we have been for a few years, where I know my job is to do market rate and work with builders, but really we're kind of focused on how do you bring affordability to people that are living in these markets and servicing all the new migration coming down. So we keep looking for answers, There's a lot of ways to look at that. Some of the ways that we found are through, well, my favorite way, and the hardest way, of course, is through density. So allow tighter building, allow more homes on acreage, allow smaller lots. That's a great way to provide affordability. If you can build 4 homes on an acre versus 2 homes, those 4 homes can be a little less expensive. And I think builders are open to that. I'm not sure most municipalities are open to that. And that's been the struggle for affordability there. There's a lot of other ways. We've talked about smaller homes. We were talking before we got on. You can build smaller homes, make them more affordable. Right now, I just got back from California, from beautiful Laguna Beach, and we had a lot of talk about that. And with the builders and the CEOs of the biggest public builders, and they're saying, look, the demand isn't there for the smaller. The demand is there for a little bit larger. So they don't want the 300 square foot home. They want 1,500 square feet because they want to live comfortably. So that's a bit of a challenge going forward, I think, for affordability.
Building products, I know you've talked about that before too.
The last year and a half, I've switched over consulting, and I'm working with the product manufacturers and with private equity there's a lot going on in that space. We're seeing a lot of M&A and a lot of consolidation. Really, to bring costs down is a huge thing. Bring costs down and bring technology into the building products world. So there's products out there, it's really amazing, that are less expensive, cheaper to produce, that would bring the overall price of the house down. But there's not that education between the product and the builder and the consumer. So the best one that I always refer to is wood cabinets. Everybody wants wood cabinets in their home, but there's actually composite wood now that's made that is more durable. It looks exactly like wood. You would never know the difference. And it handles water much better. So there's these better products out there, better durable products that mimic wood, but the consumer comes in and says, no, I want wood cabinets, because that's how it's always been. So there's an education process and an interesting way of bringing affordability inside the home. When I bought my first home, I don't know about you guys, but granite wasn't standard in the home. It was laminate, right? And there's better laminates out there now. But then the builders are nervous and they're like, well, people won't want that. So there's ways to bring affordability, I think, that are a little bit unproven that might work.
Well, it's interesting because it sounds like it's not only an education with the builder, but it's also an education with the market, right? Because you kind of have to make it sexy for people to want it.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Right. It's both, for sure. The builder is trying to deliver what the consumer wants. So they're afraid to make a change without the consumer committing to making that change.
The consumer is seeing, on Instagram and TikTok and, marble and granite and all these designers talking to them that way.
No, that's true. Pinterest does not help the cause. You're right.
On the sizing side too, Lesley, I keep thinking about my parents. They sold their home that I grew up in with them, 5 bedrooms, 4 bath or something, and they thought they would like something smaller. My mom regrets it every day. She's like, I miss the size of that larger house.
I miss it.
Yes. She could host everybody at family events, right? And we all know that age range is taking on more familial responsibility now with their children and grandchildren and all of that. So it was interesting that you brought up, we're saying build smaller, but that's not what everybody else wants. So what are the other avenues that affordability could enter the picture?
The other interesting thing I learned at the summit we were just at, the active adults are looking at 2-story product now instead of single story, right? And because interestingly, they're much healthier, like 55 and over are much healthier than they were in the past. And they like that second space, just for what you said, Callie, like the entertaining space. I can live upstairs and entertain downstairs. And then I have my kids come back and they can stay upstairs, right? So there's been a surprising strong demand for 2-story, which can help with affordability if you build up versus out, right? It's not as much land to purchase. But that has been a very surprising to the builders that's been much more accepted with the current round, if you will, of active adults. So it's an interesting trend that we're seeing.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? Especially if you are hosting people, having your family or your older children coming over with theirs, like to have a space that's not on the main level. Also, that just makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. One of the other, it kind of ties into that point. One of the other key takeaways I think that came from your guys' summit in California that Monica and I loved relates to the lifestyle side of the 55 and up. It was saying they want, yes, their lifestyle program to include a lot of wellness activities, but they also want it to include a lot of alcohol.
Yes.
Which is I just loved that we're talking about Michaela's post on LinkedIn.
Right.
Michaela Arroyo, right?
Yes.
Lesley, I'm crediting the right person on LinkedIn. Check it out if you want to see what the 6 main takeaways from John Burns' most recent summit was.
Yeah, and we'll share it on our Smith Lane page as well, so everyone can see it. But yes, like, so there's this balance that I see, right? Like, I don't want to go all the way. The active adult doesn't want to go all the way to the wellness. Like, they want to keep in some of the party and the fun, but also be healthy doing it, which, I mean, it's probably what we should all strive for a little bit, right?
Yeah, and that's why they can do the second story. They're fine with climbing those stairs in the models because they're staying more active and healthy later on in life.
Maybe they're just not taking their wine upstairs the night.
Yeah. What are we seeing on the migration side, Lesley? I mean, we know people are still moving to Florida and Texas, but you were kind of hinting about the Midwest is becoming more popular.
So this is the only part that I actually did prepare for. So I always have a lot to say, but I did pull up. So what we do in migration is we track the last 12 months of where people move by your zip code. You go to the post office and change your zip code. So the last 12 months, the top 5 places in the United States where people are moving, it's not totally surprising, right? Dallas is number 1. We would expect that. Charlotte is number 2. So the Southeast has been a huge area of immigration from Florida, from New York, from everywhere, right? So that is surprising. But number 3 on that list is Minneapolis. And it has been out there for a very long time. So I thought that was really interesting. And then it's followed by Raleigh, and then Jacksonville, which is good that Florida's coming back, Austin, and Myrtle Beach. So Texas, Florida, Southeast, you expect. Minneapolis, you definitely wouldn't necessarily. But I did look, then I looked at Minneapolis and I said, all right, where are they coming from moving to Minneapolis? Because I was kind of curious to see that as well. Denver, Chicago, and Tampa are the top 3. I mean, it's just so interesting when you look at that trend, but that's where the people are moving from to go into Minneapolis. That's why they're seeing currently.
That's interesting because you would think, okay, the climate is not such a shock from Denver or Chicago, right? But coming from Tampa.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think of, we have a client who just shared with us that his son, who's like 24, just bought his first house, and it's in the Midwest somewhere. But he was sharing about affordability for housing in the Midwest. Obviously is a little bit better than the market in Florida right now, but I think he bought his house in the 2s, which is wild.
Yeah, and Lesley, I just read something recently that, and I'm sure you've seen it, it's been all over the news right now, that the Gen Z buyer is like 20% of the buyer in like the Midwest or the, more affordable markets.
Yeah. No, and look, it's an affordability driven. There's also better job growth in the Midwest right now with a lot of the manufacturing, with some of the tech is moving in there. The tech related to the manufacturing and the construction jobs. So it's a combination of both, but I think housing is a big part of it. There's a little bit of that people say that it's climate as well. You can get cheaper insurance because there's not as much hurricanes, earthquakes, flooding. There's not a lot of climate concerns in the Midwest, except for the freezing cold. But that does bring your total cost down when you don't have to buy insurance or buy expensive insurance.
That's true. In terms of where we are in the market these days, I know you shared with me a term John Burns is using is the uneconomy. Yes. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So uneconomy, I like that term. John used that in a presentation, but it stands for 3 uns, if you will, right? The economy is, I'll start with uncertain, right? Because uncertainty is the number one concern in the economy. Everyone's uncertain about their job. They're uncertain about the global events happening. Like our consumer sentiment, which measures what people think of the future, is at a 40-year low. It is just so concerning. Because why would you buy a home? Why would you move? Why would you make major life decisions when you don't really know what's coming next? So that's the uncertainty. Then you've got the unevenness, and that's the K-shaped economy that we talk about. And that can refer to a lot of things. I know it definitely refers to seeing a stronger demand in luxury versus entry level. Like there's a stat out there now that I think less than a quarter of all homes being purchased are entry level homes, which is the lowest level in 20 years. So there's a lot of unevenness going on. Yet we do architectural surveys that are saying no, they can't wait to build a home, and the more they can put in it, like they're booming right now. So we're definitely seeing that K-shaped economy. But then the third part is the unbroken, and we are adding jobs, and we have like a little bit over 4% unemployment rate. So the economy is actually working. The economy is growing slowly, very slowly, but it doesn't seem like there's major concerns about the economic growth. So we've got all this weird contradictory elements, if you will, in the economy. And it's really, I will say the builders are very positive. They see demand. They're managing through demand. And Toll Brothers just had really good earnings call, right? So, and that's the luxury segment.
Yeah.
I've been in cycles where they're throwing up their hands saying, oh, we can't sell a home. That is not where we are. There's movement and there's activity. Everyone would like it a lot faster, but we can't quite get there just yet. So overall, it's not a negative view of what's happening in the housing market. It's just we're kind of surviving, if you will, this year, and hopefully things will become a little less uncertain next year. That would be a start.
Do you think it's the uncertainty of how the consumer feels more than anything? Because jobs are coming, right? That those things are happening, but like I know just for us, like just as a regular consumer, like things feel a little unsettled.
Right. And it's interesting because the jobs are, they're in education or in healthcare, and maybe they're not in professional services where you want them, right? It's just they're not in higher wage jobs. So there is growth, but you're right. And look what's happening globally, right? There's a lot, like gas prices are going up, inflation's starting to increase again. We weren't having that issue 6 months ago, 3 months ago. So there's a lot of head fakes, right? You think January, we thought it was going to be really positive and everything was back on track. And then we had Iran come in. There's a lot of things that are just making us question whether we want to make big decisions, like all consumers, if you will.
Yeah. I fall into that bucket. I think about, like, I probably am in a position I could be thinking about buying my first home, but I'm super uncertain about it. Like, there's nothing in me that's like, you should definitely go for this right now, So I'm probably the case study for that.
I would just say that the trend is, Lesley, you tell me if I'm right. I'm going to talk about a trend to the trend master here, but I would say that like waiting, you probably spend even more money, like you're not gaining that equity type thing, right? So like I would just say that a lot of people, like I wish I would have bought my first home years before I actually did, but I thought it was too expensive then.
Right. So imagine what I'm going to think in 10 years.
Right, exactly.
We didn't talk about it, but the other uncertainty is what technology is going to do to everybody's job, right? So what AI is going to mean for our jobs. Like, are they going to replace us? Are they going to add to us? Are they going to put us out of business? From every perspective, from every age level, everyone's sort of questioning that. So that's something that's going to play itself out over the next couple of years, I think, too.
I remember, I don't know if it was like late last year, early this year, but we kept talking about the stat of there's the most amount of inventory homes in Florida right now than as there has ever been or something. Are we still there, Lesley? Is that still the case?
No, it's a good question. It's coming down, and Florida's been actually at the forefront of starting now. It's coming down because they're discounting. So go buy your home, Callie. Go buy inventory home. That is the best deal you get.
Listen, I have Sandy telling me, I have Monica telling me, but maybe I'll just listen to Lesley. Lesley is the one I would listen to.
Thank you. It's like, if you got to listen to somebody, listen to Lesley. I mean,
know.
She told me not to start my business. Well, listen to this. So Lesley said, I'm like, Lesley, should I start my business? This was, almost 5 years ago. And she goes, I don't know, like something is coming and I'm not sure what it is, but there's something coming. I think you just need to hold on a little longer. Then COVID hit.
Yep, she's
like,
all knowing.
Literally, like smartest woman in the world right here we're talking to.
Yep.
So the inventory, it's a good question. So Florida's coming down, and the other thing that builders are doing now nationally is they're not building as many speculative homes. So now it's going to be much harder to buy one that's already completed. They're looking at the future, the to be built. So I think that's an interesting shift, because when mortgage rates were low, they tried to build as many homes as possible so you could take advantage. Now they're a little more volatile. They're doing to be built. So you're waiting till your house is built. So that number is getting better.
You kind of touched on it too, but what we're seeing, especially here in Lakewood Ranch, Monica, you can speak to this a little more, but the luxury space is doing really well.
Yeah.
Like on fire.
Yeah. But those are the people with money. Those are the people buying now.
Yeah, no, it's true. We see that nationally. So there has been a big push. And it's interesting about that because what that means to me is that there's going to be a lot of pent up demand for that first time buyer. They're in rentals right now, and you can see the rental market really heating up. There's been more demand there and the lowest level of turnover in years. So people are just kind of stuck in their rentals. They're waiting for prices to come down or affordability to hit. Meanwhile, if you have money, there's product out there and there's opportunity there. So I think, yes, the luxury is good. And I'm seeing it too. I'm seeing a lot of proposals we're doing in feasibility studies on high-end condos and hotel branded condos, right? Like there's a lot of true luxury entering the market, and that's cyclical as well. And I think that's something to watch and take advantage of. But as that happens, there's also that pent up demand on the other end of the spectrum that's just waiting to buy, which is to me also very exciting, right? It's kind of two levels, but we see that everywhere in Florida and across the country for sure.
Mm-hmm. It's a great way to look at it, that there's pent up demand.
Yeah. And then when that hits, right, everything is going to get even more expensive. So
you better buy, Callie.
I know. I feel like this episode is like changing my brain.
Yes. And guess what? It doesn't have to be your forever home.
I know.
It's your first home.
I know.
Chances are it's not going to be your first.
That's also the problem with like me and my friends and my generation is all the information we have at all times. We're all too knowing about too many things. And so our vision into the rest of the country and the world, it's like, I don't know if I want to live here forever. So why would I buy a home and like do that?
Nobody says
you don't
have to live there forever.
I know.
I think the longest I've ever lived in a house is 5 years so far. So
oh wow.
I know.
You can sell homes.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay.
Sorry. Didn't mean to be like
No. It's good. It's good. Somebody else listening also needs to hear this conversation. So it's awesome. Well, the last time we spoke with you, Lesley, 2 years ago, you were just launching your brainchild baby of Dear Consultant, which for anyone listening who doesn't know, I think it's monthly. Am I right on that?
Yes.
It's a monthly e-newsletter that goes out, and your team takes any hot topic questions that you're hearing from clients, the market, big hitters that people want to know how John Burns would think about that. You guys are answering those questions. So I love the Dear Consultant newsletter. It's also when we hire new team members who are new to our industry or real estate or anything like that, the first thing I tell them to do is to subscribe to Dear Consultant because it immediately starts putting terminology in their brain. They can start seeing numbers and data and just a starting point.
Yeah, and our clients send it to us. They'll read it and they'll send it to us like, what do you think about this?
Oh, that's so cool. So great.
So it is being used. I mean, they are using it, I think, the way that you want them to start thinking about things.
Yeah. So not really a question here. I guess I would be curious if you know off the top of your head, what's been the most opened or successful or responded to Dear Consultant yet?
I believe it was written by a newer member of our team, Jack Kelly, out in California. And he wrote a very like kind of personal one about his experience buying homes and you know, because and living in California. So we have found that and I think that the coolest thing about Dear Consultant is that we have consultants all over the country. And if you write, and we're all seeing different things in all of our markets. And originally when I started Dear Consultant, it was like, oh, let's just make it sure everybody can read it and get something from it. But then everyone has their own interests and their own take on what they're seeing. So now we've kind of, the latest one was written by Karen Albright, who was in Atlanta, and she was talking about affordability, right? So and that is really important to her. So we're all trying to, I'm hoping that all the consultants will write about what's really meaningful to them, really from what they're seeing in the market and the projects that they're working on. So we have found that the most open ones are the ones where you bring your own personal opinion and not just like a company view or a stat, but really like what you feel about what's happening in the market. So Callie, if you want to guess on how it is to buy a house, you can write the next year consultant.
There you go. Oh my gosh, ghostwriter.
Ghostwriter.
Have you guys ever had
A
somebody
guest writer.
a guest writer?
A
Have you
guest
had that
consultant.
yet?
We have not, but maybe that's a good idea.
Okay.
We should probably do that.
Yeah.
So we get hundreds and hundreds of questions, thousands really, and what we'll do is kind of sort them by topics and what really really speaks to certain consultants. So we try to parcel them out. Whether you're younger, more experienced, or in Texas versus New York, like we try to kind of spread it around. So it's been a lot of fun and really enjoyable to do.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And I totally understand the ones with personal stories doing the best. We all love story. That's that's marketing. That's consumerism. That's
true.
everything.
So, Lesley, before we go to the next question, is there anything else? I know you prepared a lot on migration. I just want to make sure that you got all of your migration topics out.
I did. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I didn't talk about. No, I mean, I'm always happy to talk about all different things. We had a lot to what you do at this conference. It was a 2-day conference just full of information, but a lot of talk about community versus the home. And I know that's always a conversation, but what the builders there were saying, and these are, when I say the builders, it's truly like the CEOs of the top 10 builders in the country. And they're all saying that community is selling more than ever. And what you provide, they're looking more at how they build and create community versus just whether the lots work. So it's been really, really interesting, because especially the big topic besides community on the finance side is land banking. So the builders are able to find land and give them to the banks to hold and to build slowly and at a certain pace. But while they can do that, they're spending more time and effort on the community side of it, because now they know that they've got to build X number of homes every month or every quarter, however they structure that. And how do they do that? Not just by putting someone sitting in a sales office, but creating the place where people want to live. While that's always been a topic, I've never heard it come from the CEOs. The CEOs are much more concerned with, how many homes do we sell and did we meet our margins, right? But now it's like, how do we do that? And the way that they're talking about it is through communities. So I'm hoping for your business to be taking off as well, in conjunction with that new, I don't want to call it a new trend, but I think it's a trend that has really started to prove itself, if you will. Because I think that the demand for master plan communities, for the sense of community, for the sidewalks, for all those open spaces is getting stronger and stronger. So just to let you know, it's definitely being voiced more than it ever has before.
That's very good to hear. And I'll tell you, we're hearing some of the similar things, especially like our regional builders, where they don't want to just build homes any longer, right? They want to build a community. And so they're coming to us to help them do that. And it's really refreshing to hear you say it, especially on the national, the big players, because it does make a difference. And I think that if we think about really what the consumer wants, they want community. And Callie and I, we just spoke about this on our last podcast about how, when we were growing up, we had that community feel. You might not have lived in a master plan community, or maybe you did, but there was the store you could go to, like you had your spots. And, how we evolve from where we were to where we are now, and then what's next in building community. I think it's going to be going to be a game changer for a lot of our builders. Like, how do you bring people in, and it's just not, they're not just buying their house, they're buying into the whole experience. And some builders are doing it right, some builders not yet, but hopefully it's coming.
What we were talking about, I think we're like kind of leveling out. So we grew up, we only had the store you could go to buy what you needed. You had your community there. Then we swung so far this way. We all just ordered everything on Amazon. But now we're over just ordering everything on Amazon. We want some community too. So we still want to order from Amazon, but we also want that community thing in the middle.
And the connection.
So it's like, finding that.
And it's interesting, Lesley. So we just have gone on a little bit of a hiring spree. We've hired about 15 people in the last 3 weeks. And all of these positions could work from home, all of them, right? Every single one of them could work from home. the question that was the thread through all of them, it was like, can I come into an office? Can I see people? Right? So I do think that some of that trend of like working from home is gold is disappearing a little bit. Like we still want some of that, of course, that flexibility.
Right.
But a lot of the people that we're interviewing, and we interview hundreds and hundreds of applicants, right, for our positions, they're saying, we want that face-to-face. We want that experience with people. So I think that's also translating over to the consumers of homes, right?
Yeah.
It's no longer just go into your house and close your door and, play in your backyard. It's like, can we have a front porch? What's the, what's the amenity situation? How am I going to meet my neighbors? Those type of things. Because we want a village again.
Yep.
Agreed.
Okay, our last topic is Smith Lane. Lesley, as you know, Smith Lane is the dirt road I grew up on in Northeast Alabama, and everything I learned about community came from Smith Lane. So last time we were together, if I recall correctly, your Smith Lane was Boca Raton, Florida, and that was about the color wars, I think you guys did.
Yeah, we talked about that. I know, and it's funny because I was like, okay, that was my Smith Lane, right? And now I'm older and I've created a family, and I probably have a different Smith Lane, right? Mine as a child was something different than my children's Smith Lane. So the best one I could come up with was not necessarily my house, interestingly, because we've lived, unlike you, Monica, we've lived in the same house since for 15 years now. But my Smith Lane is, I don't know, Callie, if you've ever seen this, because Callie and I, we lived in the same neighborhood. But every Thanksgiving, we have a football game. And it is my extended family, and it's half red and half blue. And it is the most important moment of Thanksgiving for every single family member. And it's been so incredible that some of my cousins have got married and had children, and they insist on bringing their children back to this football game. And so it is just, it's become this like moment of our family that everyone really, really looks forward to, which is quite funny because my husband's the referee, and he's pretty mean. He's strict, the line, and don't do this, don't do that. And someone always gets hurt. And it's a very serious, important game. But most importantly, like everybody wants to be home for Thanksgiving for that moment. And so it's really been this great memory that we've had. And I think we're just going to always have to live next to a football field to do it. But when the park opens the fields for Thanksgiving, my husband and my mother always have to be the first in line to reserve the field, because it's just so important to the family that we do this. So that to me is a memory that they all have. And so I'll use that as my Smith Lane. It's Patrick Park, if you will, that we live right next to. And over.
Yep, I know it well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, you've been to Patrick Park, Monica.
Yeah, I've been there.
Talk about, location, the community that I used to live in, that Lesley still lives in. Yeah, right next to a public park, that there's a gate that connects the community. You can go right through and walk over. Yeah. Things like that. That's exactly what we're talking about, that make a place so special.
Yes.
And allows for those memories to be created and continued on.
And it becomes less about the place and more about the people and the connections we make.
Yep.
Incredible,
That's
Smith
incredible.
Lane, Lesley.
Incredible.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again.
Anytime.
We'll tap you back in 2 years from now for season 6 of Smith
Or maybe
Lane.
just next year. Maybe you should be an annual or maybe you come in and be a guest host with us.
Oh,
at
that
some
would be
point.
so fun. I would enjoy that.
Yes.